Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Chatting with the Rev. Today we're going to talk about representation in this nation as it relates to people with challenged abilities. And what I'm talking about is governmental influence, governmental representation. How many people sit in Congress? How many people sit in the Senate that are challenged in ability, whether physical, developmental, or mental? How many people really sit in Congress? Now, you know, there are 100 senators in the United States Congress. There are 435 House of Representative members in the House of Representatives in Congress, giving a total of 535 members of Congress, which includes both the House of Representatives and the Senate House. We who are have challenged abilities make up 20% of the population in this nation. We cross racial boundaries, we cross ethnic boundaries, we cross religious lines and every other group lines. We have representation in every one of those groups. 60 million people here in the United States have some sort of physical, developmental, or mental challenge. 1 billion people around the world have what we call disabilities in this nation. Hello, Felicia. 60 million here in America and 1 billion around the world have some sort of physical challenge, mental challenge, developmental challenge. And yet we are the least represented in government. We are the least represented in society as a whole, in particular in this nation, because that's the nation we live in. We pride ourselves in being the leader of the free world, the example of human rights around the world, fighting for democracy in other lands. But how much of a democracy are we in this country? I look at the House of Representatives, 435 members of the House. How many people have physical challenges in the House of Representatives? We number more than African Americans as a group. We number more than Hispanics as a group. We are the largest minority group in this country and around the world. But we're focusing on America right now. We're focusing on the United States at this moment. And out of the 435 congresspersons, there are only two, actually three, that have a physical challenge in their lives. We're going to talk about them in a moment. Congress, we don't have many, one or two members of the Congress. We're going to deal with it in a moment. There are 48 members. Hello, Brandon. There are 48 members of Congress that are African American. There are only 2 members of Congress that have physical disabilities. There are 100 senators in the United States. Only 1 senator has a physical disability or a physical challenge or challenged ability. Only 1 out of 100. Only two or 3 out of 435. Yet we are the largest minority. No wonder our issues are not pressed as other issues are. No wonder we're not represented in this government as other folk are. We have nobody in there to represent us. We have nobody in there to stand up for our rights as people with challenged abilities. Those that are going to Washington, D.C. this week, I want you to look and find out for me how many people that you see in the Senate House and in the House of Representative building have physical challenges that represent us. And I want to say it like that because we're going to see in a minute how some of those who have physical challenges don't represent us either. Now, I want to go right through them very quickly for you. Before we get to that, I want to really break it down for you. We said there are 48 in all senators and congresspersons. This is all. In fact, we want to break it down. There are 46 black members of the House of Representatives and 2 members of the House of the Senate who are African American out of the 535 members. Like we said, that's an awful, that's a poor number, really. But we have 20% who are physically challenged. 14% are African American in this country. Yet there's only 1 senator, only 2 congressmen who have physical challenges. And we're going to talk about it in a moment. Let's break down some more information for you. Out of the 60 million with challenged abilities, we make up 20% of the population here in the United States. African Americans make 13%. Hispanics, 14%. Asians make up 8%. And Native Americans make up 2% of the population. African Americans have 48 persons in Congress, as I already told you. Hispanics have 32% persons represented in Congress as a whole now. Asians, they have members of Congress as well. All of them eclipse our numbers in terms of member of Congress. Now let's look at our representatives. First there is James Legovan, and he's a Democratic congressperson from Rhode Island. Legovan was injured in an accident shooting, which left him a quadriplegic. James Legovan. Then there's John McCain. We all know John McCain. A few years ago, he ran for president against Barack Obama. And he serves now, as he did then, as the senator from Arizona. Now, many of you know the history of John McCain. For those who don't, I will tell you, he was in the Vietnam War, and he was tortured and brutalized in the Vietnam War. His torture left him with limited use of one of his arms. And he has a unusual or off-kilter gait, which means he has a little limp. This all resulting in his being tortured by the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. He's a Republican from Arizona. So we have a Democrat who's a congressperson. We have a senator now that we just mentioned to you that is a Republican from Arizona. One's a quadriplegic, one has a limp, as well as limited use of one of his arms. Then we go on. And we have a gentleman named John Tester. Now, he's a Democrat, a United States senator, actually, from Montana. Tester lost 3 fingers while using a meat grinder. He's a Democrat. So we got two Democrats that are now we got two senators rather that have physical challenges. One a Republican and one a Democrat. Let's go on. Then we have Brian Mast. He's a Republican representative from the state of Florida. He lost both his legs and one of his fingers while serving in Afghanistan in the year 2010. Now, I want to talk about these gentlemen, if you will, and where they stand on health care, on issues that directly impact those who have challenged abilities. Let's go with John McCain first, because he's the most well-known, and some of his plan has already been known because he ran for president in the year 2008. So some of his ideas and concepts are already known to the public. First of all, he is not a supporter of Obamacare. He's not a supporter of Obamacare. John McCain, who is a staunch conservative of the Republican Party, was to repeal the Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act bill. Well, now it's a bill, it's a law. And he also wants to amend significantly and change significantly how Medicaid works. McCain voted no on a bill to reauthorize the expansion of children's health insurance. No, I don't want that. I don't want that expanded. This is John McCain. McCain also voted to repeal the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and the Health Care and Education Reconciliation Act of 2010. He's not a supporter of better health care for persons with challenged abilities. Yes, he supports veterans actions and things that will help our disabled veterans, and that's fine, but there's more than just disabled veterans that should be considered here. He's not a champion. He's a sure enough Republican who votes straight Republican in every issue and every position that comes up. Every bill that comes up, he's straight Republican for the main. And he certainly is a staunch supporter of getting rid of Obamacare and some of the other health services that aid and support persons with challenged abilities as well as those who are in poverty. John McCain, who has limited use of one of his arms, who walks with a notable limp, wants to get rid of Obamacare and to structurally change and significantly change how Medicaid works. I heard today that by 2020, by 24 million people that are now being serviced by either the Affordable Care Act / Obamacare and or Medicaid will no longer be insured. And it'll be harder for those who aren't insured to get on. And even those that are already on, that will stay on, some of their services will be compromised. Some of their services will be suspended and or not as great as they are now. So if you get 6 hours a day, you may get 4 hours a day of aid service. You may have to pay a little more for your medication than you do now. Now, in many instances, it's free for some. And if it isn't, it's $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 at the most. The Republicans' plan, we're going to talk about that a little later and at another time. The Republicans' plan really is to increase. You're worrying about how unattainable and how much Obamacare is for some people to have. Well, the Republican plan, according to experts in budget who have looked at this plan, well, Obamacare right now, you may have to pay $1,600 and all of that in premiums and all of that. This is going to cost you $14,000 if they keep it as it is right now, what they're proposing, the Republican plan. $14,000 plus, ultimately. Not only in premiums, but also it includes, what they call it, what you have to pay out first before the insurance kicks in, the premium. What you owe first. You pay this, and then we'll kick in from that point on. All of that together, all the parts of their program, their proposed program that's supposed to replace Obamacare, a lot of that's going to quadruple what some people pay out of their pocket. And here we have a man who is officially recognized as being a man who has a physical challenge in his life. Now, let's look at Brian Mast, who is the representative from Florida. He too wants to get rid of Obamacare as we now know it. He thinks it's getting too expensive for many people that are on it to receive it. But he also says, looking at the plan that the Republicans are pushing forward, and President Trump has endorsed, he's saying that's not perfect either. He doesn't want Medicaid to be touched. This is the Republican congressman. We've heard about a Republican Senator, John McCain, and what he thinks. Well, a Republican congressman thinks that he feels that Medicaid should not be touched, should not be hampered, should not be changed. It should stay as it is. He believes those who have pre-existing conditions should continue to be insurable without any penalties from the insurance companies. He believes, yes, there has to be some handle on the rising costs of the premiums and the monthly payments of these programs, and some tweaking has to be done on Obamacare, but basically he doesn't see the Republican position as being any better. They too have problems in what they're proposing. Remember, Brian is the one who has the one hand in the amputation of both legs. Then we have another individual. He's not a senator, he's not a congressman, but he's a governor. His name is Greg Abbott. He's the governor of Texas, the largest state in the continental United States. Alaska is the largest state in the country, in the nation of the United States. But in the continental United States, which means the mainland of the United States, Texas is the largest state. Well, this Governor Abbott, actually has, now let me say a little bit before I get into that. Governor Abbott, he's a paraplegic. The governor of Texas is a paraplegic. As he was jogging, an oak tree fell on top of him, breaking his back and paralyzing his spine. He's a paraplegic. It occurred in 1984. He was 26 years old. And before he became governor, he was the Attorney General of Texas. And as Attorney General of Texas, his position was that he believed that much of what the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, the contents of that act, that now is a law, ironically signed by a Republican president, President George W. Bush, in 1990, he signed into law the disabilities with the Act of Disabilities, the Americans with Disabilities Act. He believes Abbott believes it's unconstitutional, and he fought it on 3 points at various times, and it went to trial. He fought against it. The contents of the ADA. Ironically, still, his ability to move throughout the state building, both as Attorney General and now as governor, is due to the ADA. Before the ADA, the state house in Texas, many parts of it was inaccessible to people in wheelchairs. This man is in a wheelchair. And because of the ADA, which he believes is unconstitutional, ironically, he's now able to get from his office to other parts of the Capitol building with ease. Between the ramps and the elevators and the other equipment that are now available to him to travel throughout the Capitol building with no problems at all. Yet he, who himself is a paraplegic. I tell you, I don't know. I don't understand how people can themselves be have challenges themselves, benefit from laws that have helped we who have physical challenges, and then stand against them. Yes, they're senators. Yes, they're governors. They probably have money. They don't need certain services that many of us do. But many people with physical challenges, developmental challenges, mental challenges, we're not fortunate enough to get $100,000 salaries and $200,000 salaries and have chauffeurs usher us from place to place. We're not privileged enough to have these privileges and these rights and these perks, if you will. Most of us struggle from day to day. It's hard for us to get a good job and to keep a good job. Many of us have to accept part-time jobs, or we're on Medicare and Medicaid and other governmental SSI and SSDI, which keeps us below the poverty level. Maybe they've forgotten what struggles they've had to have. Maybe they never did. I don't know. He was at 26 years old. I don't know what his financial situation was. Maybe he was someone who had a little bit of money in his pocket. Didn't need these services. But I'm going to tell you the truth. That's part of the problem of our community. We isolate ourselves and we only are concerned about what concerns us personally and not understand that we have to fight a battle for all of us. Whether you're able to financially get your own wheelchair and get your own services, and you can pay for your nurse, and you can pay for this because you have the finances to do it or not, there are many brothers and sisters that are in wheelchairs, that have some kind of physical challenge, a developmental challenge, a mental challenge, that need the services of government. Because there is no other institution that will step up and really care about those who have special needs. We're going to get back into the neglect, I really believe, in a sense of abandonment, and the non-Christian-like and non-faith-based-like attitude of the church, mosque, and synagogues around the world. You know, most institutions began in the church. Most colleges began in the church. The church started those colleges. The church supported those colleges. But as time goes on, the church removed itself and the government stepped in. And now we're under the government's dictatorship, in a sense. We're certainly under the government's thumb. But it's sad to see that so little representation of our community is represented in the federal government, state government, or local government for that matter. And how even those that do have physical challenges that sit in those high places have no empathy, have no sympathy, have no understanding, compassion, or responsibility to making sure that those who likewise have some sort of challenge are treated with equity and inclusion and justice. Don't have many in there in the first place. We'd probably always be voted down if we stood as a block with what, 2 or 3 senators and 2 senators and 2 congresspersons. We'd always be voted down. But just the principle of the thing, that we have a champion in there that we can go to. We who have physical and developmental and mental challenges should be able to count on John McCain. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. He has a physical challenge. He knows what suffering is. He knows what physical limitations are. He knows all about that. He's experienced it for himself. And for him to stand up against Obamacare, and not just Obamacare per se, but a health care system. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care whose name is tagged on the health care plan. It's what the plan contains in it that I am concerned about. I want everyone. Me personally, I would like universal health care. That everybody has a fair chance as having health care. And that those who have physical, developmental, and mental challenges, those of us are guaranteed to have our health care provided for. Without worrying about whether somebody's going to take it away or revamp it or redo it, so much so that I'm not even qualified anymore to receive it. It takes forever for us to get things anyhow. Good afternoon, Shawnette. It takes forever for us to get anything anyhow. We struggle for everything that we try to get. And now we have people in there that's out to end things as they are now, to remove privileges and rights that every citizen should have. Most free countries who aren't even as wealthy, aren't even as powerful, don't even have the resources as our country has. They already have universal health care. Everyone in their nation is already provided health care to the maximum. We pay too much for our medicine. That's everybody who has to pay for anything. It says $100 or $200 a pill. That's just for an aspirin. I can get an aspirin, in some places, 1 or 2 of them. Well, one I can get for a few cents compared to $100 for one aspirin. It's always about what we can get out of things ourselves instead of what we can do for others. People claim us to be a Christian nation. Well, I don't see much Christian in some of the attitudes that many people have about folk that have challenged abilities. And our government and those that are sitting in the government need to understand that. I believe we as people with challenged abilities, we must make sure that we have better representation first and foremost. That there are more than just 2 senators out of 100. That there are more than just 2 congressmen out of 435 that represent us. We have to make sure that's done. By going to the polls and first lifting up people like ourselves and pushing them forward in government, making sure that they're voted for. We're 60 million strong. If we would vote as a block, there's nothing we can virtually get. Because I'm going to tell you something, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. In terms of how society sees us, they don't see us as Republican. They don't see us as Democrat. They don't see us in any way but we're disabled. That's how society sees people in wheelchairs. They don't look at no politics. They first see you as being a disabled person. Even the way they say disabled people. That's why I like to use, if I use the word disabled, I don't even like the word disabled because you know why? It means to be limited, disadvantaged, and disqualified to do anything. That's the definition for the word disabled. Disqualified to do anything, limited, and disadvantaged. That's the definition. And if you want to be categorized as being disadvantaged, limited, and disqualified from doing anything, if you want to be classified as that, well, that's your prerogative to be classified. But just the word itself. But if you're going to use that word, put person first, which means I'm a person with a disability, not a disabled person. Because disabled person, you're looking first at my inabilities instead of my abilities. I'm a person first, just like you are. With every right, with every privilege that's due you, is also due me. Everything that you think you should have that makes your life better, I should have to make my life better. Same thing. No difference. We have to unify. We have to make sure that we have better representation. 20% of the population are people with disabilities, with challenged abilities. And we only have 2 senators and 2 congressmen. Out of 435 congresspersons and 100 senators, 535 total, we have 4. And some of those don't even want to support programs and policies that would edify and protect and perpetuate in a positive way the quality of our lives. Well, that's all we have to say about that. I want us to think about that. I want us to really absorb that in our minds. Other groups, other minority groups have much less numbers than we do in terms of how many folk there are in this country, yet their representation is great compared to ours. And that's why our issues are not in the forefront. That's why our issues are never priority. That's why when people talk about their policies and their politics and their agenda, they either don't mention us at all, or they mention us in a footnote like, oh yeah, we believe for justice for everybody. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. Even the issue of health care, until we ourselves, and I'm so glad I'm a part of groups that are really involved with promoting what is of our best interest. Because even when you look at other issues like housing and other issues like that, we're not even considered, yet we are the most affected by housing. Why? Because most housing either are not affordable to us because of our low income, or they're not accessible to us because they don't have ramps, they don't have this or that. You know, they don't have, if you have hearing problems or visual problems, or issues in your life, you know, they don't have equipment to accommodate that. There's not enough apartments, not enough housing out there that has us in mind, not enough buildings out there. We have government buildings you can't even get into. I know I go into government buildings and I can't get, some of them I can't even get into. I've been to medical buildings I can't get into. Because the doors are too narrow or they're too heavy. They're not, you don't have that button that you push to open them up automatically. And if you do have them, they don't work. Society is just not made up with us in mind. Things are not built with us in mind. Even with the ADA, there's all kind of loopholes you can get around it and all of this type of thing. And people do it. I haven't been to a church I've pastored yet, because none of them can accommodate, except for one. None of them can accommodate persons in a wheelchair. And even then, you got to maneuver. The one I can get into, you have to maneuver in such a way that it's not, it's hard even to still get in it. And I've pastored 6 churches in my life, and not one, except for maybe one. I'll say maybe one because the maneuvering effort you'd have to do, almost won't even want to try. But you can do it technically. The churches I pastored, before I was confined to this, before I was confined to a wheelchair, primarily to travel. Well, I can still walk a little bit, yes. But it's it's becoming more and more difficult. And traveling, forget it, because if I have to go further than outside my apartment, I can't travel without being in a wheelchair. I can't walk like that anymore. But I'm 65 and I've had cerebral palsy for all my life, and other ailments, other illnesses, and other conditions I've had all my life. I've had a fused hip since I was 16 years old, and I've recently fell in 2008, and then in 2014 I had a knee replacement, and other issues that I have, asthma and other things that I have that challenge me. And I know many others that are being challenged every day by whatever condition you may have or conditions you may be experiencing. And all we're doing is asking for even playing field. Nothing special. But I don't think it's special to allow me to be able to go into any building I would want to go into. To allow me to navigate with my chair into any situation. Without saying, can I go? Can I get in there? I always have to ask, is it accessible? It should automatically be done. But everything I go to, I got to ask, is it accessible? I used to preach all the time. In particular churches, I have to ask, are you accessible? Can I get into you? Can I get into the building? 9 times out of 10, they say, no, we can't accommodate you. We can't accommodate you. We don't have a lift, we don't have a ramp, we don't have a this, we don't have a that. And so I have to decline and say, I'm sorry, I can't make it there. There has to be a day where everyone is treated fairly, where everyone is treated like an American citizen. Good afternoon, my wife, Teresa. Where everyone is treated fairly. But this country truly is a democratic country where all the people are treated and offered liberty and justice. Prosperity is offered to everyone. An opportunity to advance your life and improve your life and improve the lives of those. My wife said, never going to happen. Sad. But I really believe she's right. But I don't want it not to happen because I didn't do nothing. I don't want it not to happen because I just threw up my hands and surrendered. I don't want it not to happen because I was too complacent, too docile, too passive, too laid back, too accepting, allowing others to dictate my destiny, my purpose, my mission, my goals in life. I tell even minister friends of mine, I said, my main purpose, I've been a pastor, I've been a preacher all my life, been a pastor all my adult life. I don't need to be a head of no church in that sense of the word. I just want to do something that's going to impact in a positive way my community, my disabled community, and my community as a whole. Because once we begin to love one another, the whole community, everybody in society benefits from it. Well, we got to get ready to go. Now, my wife says as long as the rich get richer, the poor are going to get poorer. And that's the truth. But we can change it if we choose to. But we got to stick together. We got to do it together. And we got to fight the good fight. Until next time, until Friday. Be blessed. My machine saying that only got 10 minutes worth of battery life left. So be blessed. See you on Friday, 3 o'clock. Remember, my wife also has a program Friday evenings at 7 o'clock. And keep on believing that it's possible. My wife says if those are in charge of making laws, keep getting the best in life care. As long as their life, in other words, she's saying in this, as long as they got health care, and as long as they got all the privileges and all the things that are out there to enhance and advance their life, we're screwed. If we had half of the programs that our senators and congresspersons have, my Lord, what a wonderful life we would live. But we can forget about that, though. That's not going to happen. Good afternoon, Pastor Clark. So keep on plugging on. Keep on. Never lose heart. Never lose faith. Never lose the idea that you can. It can happen. And if it don't even happen in our lifetime, you know, it didn't happen with Nat Turner, did it? Didn't happen with Harriet Tubman, did it? Didn't happen in their lifetime. Didn't happen even with Martin Luther King. It didn't happen during their lifetime. It still hasn't happened in its fullness even in our lifetime. But you can't give up and surrender. You can't give up and call it a day. You can't throw in the towel. You got to keep on fighting until you can't fight no more. And then you have to teach somebody else how to fight. So after you can't fight no more, they can pick up the fight and continue to fight anyhow. Until Friday, see you real soon. Be blessed. Keep up the fight. It ain't over till it's over.